Well, for the life of me, I have no idea how you capture life in a day, but they did it, and we're going to find out how. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and I am here to tell you about a movie that you can see right here on YouTube. It is Life in a Day. It is the second in a series of films that capture life on planet Earth in one day. It is absolutely an astoundingly beautiful film. It captures all the types of things that connect us. We all wake up in the morning. We all consume food. We all bathe and participate in hygiene. We all love family. We all experience birth, death. And what I love so much about this film is that it captures across the globe how people experience all the things that connect us. The first film came out in 2010. The second film was captured in July of 2020. It played the Sundance Film Festival, but it's available to see on YouTube. I am really honored to talk to one of the lead creatives and editors on the film, Nsé Asukwo. I hope I pronounced that right. Please, my apologies in advance.
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
And she is staying up late in London right now to talk to us on the Film Threat Podcast about how this whole project came together. I was aware of the first film, saw it and loved it. This second film really just ups the ante because not only did you capture all those things, and I love the fact that you capture all these rituals and how different it is for people all over the globe. I mean, I feel fortunate to live in a first world country and have all these amenities and great things, but I love how you were able to capture just like not everybody is able to live at this level. And I found it just so touching and beautiful because we all do experience the same things. We bathe, we love our families, we experience death. It's so amazing. Tell me how you put this together, because obviously this was a group project. You're the lead editor of a team of people who put this together. And I'm just fascinated with how this came together, because the big challenge was not only capturing all those things, but during a global pandemic. So yeah, what went into that?
So there were 3 editors, so of equal importance. And the nature of the documentary is that it's crowdsourced. So we didn't film anything and the director didn't film anything. So we were at the mercy of what people sent in. And so I guess that point is makes it a little bit different from the documentaries that we usually work on, because there's a level of control that's been relinquished because we're at the mercy of people. And we didn't know what we were going to get. So we couldn't formulate an idea of the documentary. We had an idea of maybe what themes would be there, but we just had to watch the footage. And then from the footage, the film emerged. So we had, there was about 60 to 70 reviewers who would review all the footage. So there was 324,705 submissions over that amount. And so there were so many hours, and we couldn't watch the footage by ourselves because it would take us years to do that. So we had all these reviewers, and they would review the footage before we got to see them. And we kind of divided it. We had a rating system from 1 to 5. So 5 was something that you really had to see. That was an amazing piece of footage. And 1 was nobody should see it. And when it was a 5, we thought about a continuing story. So if somebody had sent in footage where we could see their day and there was an emotional arc and we could follow through, and it could be sort of a foundation of what the film was to be based on, then it was a 5. And then if something, and so in the film, you can see there's a couple who are trying to have a baby. So that would be an example of a 5, because we follow their emotional journey. And a 4 would be, it may not be a recurring story, but it'd be something unique or something that's really amazing to see. And in the film, there's a scene where there's a chicken on a motorbike in the morning and it's crowing, and it's in Nigeria, and this guy says that this it crows every morning and wakes him up. And so it was very funny, but it was a really unique insight into his world. So that was a 4. And then a 3 would have been something like the empty streets of Corona. So it would be labeled a 3 and then tagged Corona. So if we needed to do a Corona section, we'd be able to see all of the footage which depicted Corona. And then the 2s and the 1s we didn't see at all. So it was a really big process, and we had to really trust the reviewers that they would be able to look at the footage and then send us the most relevant pieces of footage.
Well, it's interesting. So 325,000 submissions there. I mean, there had to be, they say to make a really good documentary, you need a minimum of 100 hours of footage. Generally, friends of mine who are editors will say you need about 300 hours of footage to make a good doc. It sounds like you had, how can you even estimate how much footage was submitted of the 325,000 submissions?
It was just, I mean, no, I can just say it's a lot.
Right. And 70 seems, and that seems kind of small to have 70 people reviewing all of that. What I also love is not only you capture dramatic moments, you know, in people's lives, proposals, you know, but also some mundane, like there's a kid that just is trying to he's trying to catch all these trains. He's a train fanatic, right? And he wants to see if he can catch. And so I love that you determined all these threads. It had to be, for yourself as an editor, I mean, you know, talk about what do they say? Like it's like killing babies when you got to like cut certain things out of a movie. I mean, you could have made Life in a Day a series. It could have clearly from the footage could have been a series. What went into the thought process of this makes it in, this doesn't, and then among your team, how did you wrestle with those battles? You know, in terms of what we use and what we don't use.
Right. So I think the most important thing with the footage that it had to move us and it had to reveal something about people and their world, and there had to be a certain vulnerability there. And it's really strange because you can have all this criteria, but it's not an exact science. I'll give an example of a clip that I'd seen, and it was really, I found it really moving. It's the scene where there's a lady in Florida and she has her head on a pillow and she's filming herself. So her face fills the screen. And so we're just watching her face and we're so close. It's as if we're in the bed lying with her. And then you hear on the radio, there's a report of Breonna Taylor. And then you watch her as she's listening to the report. And it's really moving because you're introduced into her world and you are seeing things from her perspective. And so it's very layered. And then you watch her, she wakes up her siblings, she sings SpongeBob. But in that very short clip, you can see a range of emotions and you really get insight into her. I mean, I'm saying this in hindsight, but when I watched it, it was just, you just felt really moved. And sometimes you don't know why in the moment, and then you discover it as you're editing and as you're going along.
It's remarkable because, you know, Life in a Day happens on a particular day. It's people who film. Is it July 25th, 2020? Is that? Yeah. So July 25th, 2020 is when it was shot, all of that footage, but it really encapsulated all of the dramatic events, most of the dramatic events of 2020 up until that point. And, you know, I feel like we're still feeling those effects. So it's just so incredible that you were able to pull that together. And there, I do want to ask about, there's a connection between the first Life in a Day film and the second one regarding a particular a young boy. And how did that come together? And what were your thoughts when that footage came in? Because it's an open thing, this Life in a Day. Any person on the planet Earth can participate, right? It's crowdsourced. There's criteria and you know, method to sending it in. But there was that connection between Life in a Day 2010 and 2020. Can you talk about that dramatic moment, and how it really, I mean, explain like you know what it's costing us, this whole pandemic.
Are you talking about Alex, who passed away?
Yeah, I'm talking about. Yeah, I didn't want to say it directly, but yes, Alex, who passed away, and it's revealed in such a dramatic way. I mean, I'm sure that woman was just documenting her life.
Yeah.
But yeah, she shows her son, which is just being a kid. He's lazy getting up, and he's being a goofy, I don't know, he's like 14-year-old kid. And then you see that he has passed away from coronavirus, and you see an urn. How tell me about that, and how that came together.
And this is exactly how you've said. When we had during the review, we had a section where if previous contributors had sent in footage, we would tag it, so then we would be able to see if there are any updates, because that's really interesting. And lots of people were invested from the first film. And so Alex's mum sent in the footage, and we were watching, and we were moved. It's incredibly vulnerable. It's incredibly painful. I mean, we didn't do anything. It plays out exactly as she filmed the footage. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. It was really, I don't know how to explain it. It just shows life, and it's so relatable.
And you don't expect a child that young to have passed away in 10 years. I mean, it's shocking. Yeah. She reveals it by shooting the original Life in a Day and then kind of pans over. It's just so moving. I just can't imagine what it was like to just like see some of this footage as it came in. I mean, that's, one of many dramatic highlights in the film. I being involved in a project like this, what do you feel like? I feel like this project, for someone who's an editor, if you're an aspiring editor, or I mean, if you're just someone who works as an editor, this is a masterclass in editing. There are sequences that are 30 seconds where so much information is revealed. And especially because I watched them back to back. I watched the new one twice. I watched the first one from 2010. And you see that the 2021, it's even more, it's a masterclass in editing. It really is. Like, whether you're a seasoned editor or an aspiring editor, what are the takeaways and what do you learn? And because this isn't a traditional project, and that you approach as an editor, it's not like editing a feature film or editing a traditional documentary where you have, a couple hundred hours of footage. This is hundreds of thousands of hours of footage. So the process, what do you learn, and what can you pass on to your colleagues as editors, having been involved in this momentous project? And I'm really hoping that there is a 2030 version. This really needs to be a continuing project. This needs to be sent into outer space for aliens to study, to try to understand us, and also for us to look at ourselves in terms of how to understand us. But can you tell me what are some of the things that you learned in this process that you might share with your colleagues, whether they're up and coming or seasoned?
I think the principles on the very basic level are the same. It's just learning how to read footage, how to listen and not impose something onto the footage, first of all. And I think it was highlighted so much in this process because the director didn't film the footage and we didn't know what we were going to get. So we had to be incredibly open and to respond honestly to what we were seeing. And I think one of the things that I've taken away is how you can have such a short piece of footage which can reveal so much. Because obviously people shot lots and lots of footage and we would only capture just a very small bit of that footage, but the essence of it would echo all of the full footage that they had sent. And also I think another thing that I've really learned is how two pieces of footage speak to each other, and how where you place something can really impact meaning. I think of an example. There's a section in the film, where Alex's death is revealed, and then we go to the Irish singers at the funeral. And originally there's a footage of a dead body being washed. It's an Islamic ceremony, and we had that after that as well. And so how you read that scene was quite dark, and it continued the theme of death. And so you focused on the dead body. But then we moved that scene of the washing of the body, we moved that to, there's a section on work where you see essential workers. So we moved that into that section, and the meaning, or what you focus on in that footage, changed, because you focused on the men who were actually washing the body, and you focused on the ritual and the care that they took, and just the fact that they were doing this job, this essential job. And for me, that was extraordinary, because the cut had not changed at all. It was just the placement. And so seeing how scenes relate to each other and how we develop meaning was really fascinating for me. And it was accentuated through this project.
I just thought it was beautiful in the sense that these are all things that we will all experience. We will all experience, loved ones, the death of loved ones. I love, there were just so many different connections. Food also, and eating. Yeah. There's some fun and they're lighthearted moments. Levity and their pets. Right. I'm curious as to how, because what I love is how it just included just such a global view of the world. Right. I feel very privileged to live in the United States, and, I'm not rich by any means, but I'm doing okay. Right. But that, as compared to other people around the world. But what I see is they don't see their circumstances as even being one of missing anything, right? Like it's really shows how beautiful life is. And how did you get to some of the people? Did you have to provide cameras and instruction? What was the process in terms of, I know it's crowdsourced, and that's, easy thing to say, it was crowdsourced, but it's like to get over 300,000 submissions from, and you don't want a lot of the same people. You want a variety of people. So how is the outreach done? Does Google help with that? Like, how is the outreach done to make sure that you get people really from all over the globe at all levels?
I know that there was an outreach before the 25th of July to some harder to reach countries. And there were people who were from those countries, and sometimes there would be filmmakers or students. But that's as far as I know. I'm sure something else happened, but that's as far as I know. And I know that we got 192 countries, submissions from 192 countries. So it was quite vast.
Well, that's why it's a team effort, right? But I'm so impressed that there was such a global view, that it really puts so many things into perspective when you see the overall effort. What is, when you're getting close, because you have a deadline, right? The movie premiered at Sundance, and then thankfully is now available to view on YouTube. When do you know, like, hey, we're getting there? It's not like, when you're editing, I've worked on projects before, and it's like, okay, we have the 2.5 hour cut. We got to get it down to 90 minutes. And it's about 90 minutes. Am I right? I think it's about 90 minutes ish. How do you know when you're getting there, when you're like, okay, the Sundance deadline, we know when it is, we know when it's screening as part of Sundance. That's how I was able to see it. I'm just glad that everyone now can see it, so I'm recommending it. You can see it, so seek it out. And I know you're going to want to see the 2010 version. How do you know when you're getting there? Is it the deadline kind of forces you, but how do you know when you're really getting there, where you're like, we got to lose this chunk, or we got to trim out X amount? What is that process with your team?
You know what the weird thing was about this film? The very first cut that we did, we all loved it. Kevin and and us editors, we loved it. We there was never a moment where it was in a really bad shape. What's your question? Sorry, I forgot the question.
Wow. Well, it sounds like I just like, when do you know it's done? When do you know you're getting close? Because you have a deadline, you have to finish it. But when do you know like it's starting? But you said you all watched it with the first cut and you all loved it. Was that first cut? That first cut couldn't have been 90 minutes. It had to be longer, right? Like,
no, it was only a smidgen longer. It wasn't that much longer. But I mean, obviously we had a lot of work to do. But we just saw the potential of what it could be, and it was really moving. And yeah, my
apologies. I think when you compare the 2010 version to the 2020 version, there's clearly lessons learned. And the 2020 version is, I'm not trying to disparage the 2010 one. It's like, you can just see that it's like, oh, this is like any good sequel. It's more, it's better. It's, I think it's more ambitious. Yeah, I mean, it must have been quite an experience just to like see it all like coalesce and come together. And the thing that I think really resonates are those themes. Those when there's a thread and a theme, whether it's death or love or family or mundane. Like, I like that hygiene is included. Yeah. I know that sounds strange, but it's like hygiene. Well, yes, I think what I love about it is it just shows how connected we are. No matter what level, we all do these things. We all go to the bathroom. I think there's some sequences of like, not graphically, but like that's like a part of it because it's a part of life, right? Yeah,
there's some bathroom action, a little
bathroom action, not in any gross way, but it has to be pretty amazing. I mean, unfortunately, I'm going to guess you weren't able to see it in a movie theater with an audience, which is the ideal way.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it obviously in the mix. We saw it large, and we saw it with the sound guys. Mm-hmm. So that was, I mean, it's not the same, but it was nice. I mean, it would have been really lovely to see it with an audience, because I feel like they're so special when you see people's reactions. Mm-hmm. And because then the film is not yours anymore. It's like it has legs and it runs and it belongs to everybody. And so, I mean, you kind of get it through comments on YouTube. You kind of feel what people are thinking, but you're right. It's not the same.
I'm curious. So there's going to be another one in 10 years.
Hopefully, yes.
Are you going to be part of that team?
Hopefully. Well, who knows what will happen, but yeah, I would love to be.
I really hope you do it. It's really an amazing document of our planet and our culture, and say thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Life in a Day is on YouTube. Do not miss this film. Absolutely beautiful. And thank you for spending time with me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.